This video is gonna get demonetized just because of the name, and the Bayonetta video is gonna be totally fine. So at the time, Ratchet and Clank Future Tools of Destruction was a big deal, and fans were waiting to find out what was in store next for the duo as the game ended on a pretty big cliffhanger. But the next entry in the series was going to take a bit more time than normal. But because Ratchet dare not miss a year with a game, a small team was formed by Insomniac to make a more bite-sized adventure that would serve as a bridge between Tools of Destruction and later A Crack in Time, titled Ratchet and Clank Future: Quest for Booty. That name is great, I love that title, that is all. The idea was to use a lot of assets from before to speed up development, which involved fleshing out the pirate storyline introduced in the previous game, and was made to be a jumping in point to the series. That's at least what Insomniac said, we'll get into that. And the game was released for the PlayStation Network as a download-only title. Unless you live in Australia or Europe, where they actually did get a physical release. Later copies of Into the Nexus would have a voucher for Quest for Booty, which is how I got my copy. But those have long since expired by now, so if you're one of those people worried about the digital void, you might want to grab a European copy if needed. The PS3 is region free, so you can totally do that. I did hop onto Tools of Destruction after playing the PS2 games, but I didn't play this one for a while after. Maybe I was just getting burnt out? I don't know. But when I got myself a copy of Into the Nexus, on the shelf it went for later, and I decided to play the rest of the games in order, since I knew how story-focused they were now, and binged the rest of the series on from that point. Also, a fun little fact, I've been using digital copies for these reviews because of the technical issues I stated last time. I want to play it safe. And since it's been so long since these games came out, each Ratchet game on the PSN store is $10 now. However, they didn't mark down Quest for Booty when they did this, so the game went from a budget title to the most expensive PS3 Ratchet game. Wrap your head around that one. So was I missing out on anything? Only one way to find out, so let's get into it. But before I put that spoiler bumper up, Quest for Booty does take place right after Tools of Destruction, which is why I gotta put the bumper up. But you're not missing much story-wise. You can go from Tools of Destruction into A Crack in Time, no problem. Why? Well... So back at the end of Tools of Destruction, Clank was abducted by the Zoni with no trace of where he went. So Ratchet uses the supercomputer Iris once again to find any information on the Zoni, which leads them to finding out about Darkwater, a pirate who had an encounter with the Zoni, and the little creatures gave him an object known as a fulcrum star, which combined with an obsidian eye, can help locate the Zoni. Unfortunately, he was killed some time ago by Slag as an act of mutiny, but Pete meets up with Talon and Ratchet, the Lombax is Pete's captain after all, and he agrees to take them to Darkwater's old ship, since any pirate worth their salt would have a map to their most prized treasure. That is until after they get the map, Pete places the head of Slag on the Darkwater's body, bringing him back to life. However, Darkwater placed a curse on his body, which would have him and his crew come back to life if they were ever disturbed. In this case, the two pirates end up sharing one body. After making their escape, our two heroes follow the map to Darkwater's Cove to find the Fulcrum Star before the others do. Ratchet ends up falling for a trap and Slag takes off with Talon captive, and the Fulcrum Star for himself so he can pillage the Zoni dimension. For about 10 minutes until Ratchet saves Talon, the Star, and slays Slag for a second time. With the Star in hand, Ratchet finds out that Clank is being treated by the Doctor, showing the return of Dr. Nefarious. With coordinates in hand, Ratchet sets off to find Clank. And that's it, the game ends right there. Wow, that's a filler story if I ever heard one. Very similar to something like, say, Kingdom Hearts Recoded, you'll only really learn one thing through this story, that being Clank's vague location, and that's it. By the way, I can't help but find it funny Clank only has 2 appearances in this game, and still gets his name in the title, but deadlocked despite the fact that he's there for most of the game? Nah, that's just a Ratchet joke. I mean, we do sort of wrap up the loose ends of the pirate storylines, even though there weren't many. Okay, let's be a little bit more positive for a sec. I do like more of the world building that we get with Darkwater and Slag. Again, it makes the world feel much more deep in its history. I like that. But I was hoping some of the character interactions would be able to pick up the slack. Planet interactions are nothing special. The stuff with Pete is just there. The most disappointing one for me was that there was no attempt to make any kind of dialogue between Talon and Ratchet. They both have lost someone, they're searching across the cosmos to find them. This could have been a great opportunity to have the two interact more, but no, nothing. Talon is even more just there than she was last time. It's worse for her because she doesn't even show up in a Kraken time. I am curious, was there something in the writing department that fell through with her? Because it felt like they were setting up for something and then just went nowhere. If someone in the comments knows anything about that, please feel free to tell me. But yeah, there's a reason no one talks about Quest for Booty story-wise, because, well, there's hardly one here, and without good character moments and such, it leaves a hollow feeling. The only thing that got me excited when playing the first time was seeing Nefarious come back, but that's more excitement for the next game, not this one. As stated before, Quest for Booty was made using a lot of pre-existing assets from Tools of Destruction, so it's very comparable to that game. Though I do think some characters like Ratchet got a bit more work done to their models, and I think they look a bit cleaner than last time. But some of the models made just for this game, mainly the NPCs, are merely okay. I don't think helping that is the animations are much more stiff, as they're mainly just idles when talking to one another and yeah, some of the animations can look super rough, and it's all kinds of distracting when I see them. Though on the positive side, I really do like the environments this time, including a deserted island, dark cave systems, a jungle. These are cool locations, and the use of more dynamic lighting in the cave systems is a really nice touch. The game also uses more dynamic camera angles, and they do tend to add a bit more to the scale of the environments, and the voice acting once again is solid throughout. Though just like Tools of Destruction, the sound can desync from the cutscenes on certain PlayStation 3s. But being fair, it only happened 2 times as opposed to the like 80% of the time that it did in Tools of Destruction. And it was only just a hair off. It's still an issue, but not as big this time. But one thing I'm glad carried over is the soundtrack. I love this score, mostly in the main theme. It's so good! Sadly, this would be the last title from the series' main composer, David Berregard. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but man, he went out on a great score. So Quest for Booty is mostly the same as Tools of Destruction when it comes to the presentation. So is there any big changes on the gameplay side? So gameplay for the most part is your standard Ratchet affair, but with a bit of a twist. You're not really going to different planets this time, rather it's a handful of areas you go to in a more linear fashion. Your weapons are a few returning from Tools of Destruction with not a single new one. Yeah, none, not even new gadgets to use as well. Okay, you kind of have a new gadget in the form of a new Omni Wrench. See, you're now able to tether and manipulate platforms, like bringing down springs or moving platforms. You can now also hold objects in your wrench, like fire rocks that you can use to destroy obstacles, or these green little creatures that can produce light. The game doesn't have a New Game Plus mode, rather just a difficulty select that really only changes damage values, and that's really it for Quest for Booty, honestly. Like, seriously, that's it. So, the good? Okay, so for the good in Quest for Booty, I honestly do like the greater emphasis on platforming. Combat is more in the background, so the level design I feel is a bit closer to, say, Ratchet 1. And with that new wrench, it does create for some nice little bits of level design that feel more refreshing after the last 3 games were pretty heavy in combat. The game doesn't really sit around for too long. There's a little bit of padding in terms of some mook rushes, but that's about as far as it goes. And you know, the idea of a more pirate-themed game is fun. Kind of like how Secret Agent Clank had a whole spy theme. I'm totally down for these more themed adventures, as they carve out more of an identity for themselves. And, honestly, I think Quest for Booty actually has more of an identity than Tools of Destruction. It's really weird, I know, but that's just how I feel. I think there's a greater emphasis on platforming and puzzle solving, no half-hearted other segments like Clank or the ship segment. It's pure Ratchet gameplay from beginning to end. But I do think the game has some pretty noticeable downsides. I got my issues with Quest for Booty. There's a pretty obvious one, but let's go over some of the smaller stuff first. Once again, the game was just way too dark. Even when the brightness was cranked up, I still had a hard time getting around these caves. Like, look at this footage, it's so hard to see. And anytime you need to walk across these beams in the dark, they don't have any grip on them, and I'm just tapping the stick forward hoping I don't fall to my death. Now, I didn't find Quest for Booty hard or anything. It was a pretty comfortable journey compared to the last one, but low ammo counts were for sure an issue, but for a really odd reason. There's no vendors in this game, since you get your weapons naturally through the story. The only one you buy is the Alpha Cannon, so the only reason you get bolts is to pay the smuggler as some glorified paywall. But I always was above the threshold, so this should be a non-issue. The real issue is that you can't buy ammo for your weapons. Instead, you have to rely on ammo crates, and in some areas, there just aren't many. So you're gonna be stretched thin on a few weapons if you're unlucky enough. Plus, you can't upgrade your weapons via the skill tree from last time. It's back to the normal level ups, and they start at level 3 anyway. I'm honestly surprised they didn't have a feature that let you import your weapons from Tools of Destruction, because, well, it kinda leads into a big overall feeling about Quest for Booty. It doesn't really stand as its own game, rather an extension to Tools of Destruction. It's like a DLC campaign before they really started to take off. Besides some more platforming, the new wrench, and unique locations, all of this stuff was in Tools of Destruction, which, may I remind you, I already had a problem with being a pretty typical Ratchet experience without much to make it stand out. And the game is done in under 2 hours, which I was honestly shocked by. I remembered it being at least 4, but nope. And there's really nothing to explore for. No Rhino to get, nothing like that. No New Game Plus either. The most you're gonna get is hard mode, and that's it. You know, when I do these reviews, I make sure I have a Google Doc open so I can jot down any notes, you know, when I'm playing the game. This game, I had a grand total of 5 notes for the entire game. I think that's kinda telling. It's not that it's bad, but man, there is just not much to talk about. Quest for Booty was made to be an in-between filler title, and man does it feel like it. The game doesn't do anything new besides the new wrench, you're more limited than you were last time, and doesn't have good character interactions or plot to make me keep going after the first playthrough, and has very little replay value. As a Ratchet game, the only real thing it does gameplay-wise is that wrench, and just saying it now, Crack in Time brings that back and basically does the same thing with it there. But strangely, I find myself liking it more than Tools of Destruction. Not by much, but I think the few things that it focuses on give it a bit more of an edge. It originally was made to be a smaller, more bite-sized Ratchet, but that's not an exclusive trait to this game anymore, and other smaller Ratchet games, I think, do more with their allotted time. And as a game in general, you're done in 2 hours with no real reason to come back. I think you're honestly fine skipping this one. It was made to fill in the time, but now, it's not filling in for anything. I think it's kinda telling that the final message in the game is saying that the adventure will continue, and then boots you back to the title screen. Really saying that it's not the next chapter, just a little side note in the series. So yeah, not a really long video this time, but the next one. Oh boy, the next one. It's Ratchet and Clank Future, A Crack in Time. This is going to be the longest review I've ever done, so subscribe, hit the bell, make sure YouTube actually works with the sub boxes. I'll see you then.